What happens when a company that once shaped childhood dreams decides it's better to chase hashtags than craft timeless stories? Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into one of the most brutal takedowns in entertainment. And no, it's not a new Rotten Tomatoes score. It's South Park obliterating Disney's Snow White remake in a way only South Park can. From tone-deaf casting to insulting the original film, to a script that feels more like a diversity checklist than a fairy tale, Disney's latest attempt at reinvention has fans, and now satirists, rolling their eyes. And the worst part? They still don't get why it's all falling apart. Let's get into it. Disney was once a name synonymous with magic, creativity, and unforgettable stories. From animated classics like Cinderella and The Lion King to live-action hits like Pirates of the Caribbean, Disney captivated audiences worldwide. But today, the company seems to have lost its way. In its pursuit of box office success and social media relevance, Disney has shifted focus from emotionally rich storytelling to ticking corporate diversity checkboxes. Take their live-action remakes, for example. What started as a creative decision has become a cash grab, with minimal updates and forced political elements. While reimaginings can be great, when these updates prioritize social agendas over storytelling, they alienate fans. Representation matters, but it should complement a story, not overpower it. When Disney alters beloved characters like Snow White or Ariel to fit a modern agenda, it often falls flat. Instead of staying true to the essence of these characters, Disney risks alienating the very fans who made them iconic. In the end, Disney, once a leader in family entertainment, now seems more focused on political correctness than telling compelling, imaginative stories. Enter Rachel Zegler, the actress cast as Snow White, in the live-action remake of Disney's iconic Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. At first, Zegler's casting seemed like a well-intended move, as Disney aimed to put a new spin on the classic fairy tale with a more diverse casting choice. However, the backlash came swiftly, not because of her ethnicity or identity, but because of the way she handled her role and her comments about the original film. Zegler, in multiple interviews, made it clear that she wasn't particularly fond of the 1937 Snow White. In fact, she almost seemed to dismiss the original movie, outright publicly stating that Snow White is weird and that the original film is problematic. She went on to criticize the film's depiction of the prince, calling him a stalker, and claimed that the romantic storyline was unnecessary for modern audiences. While it's important to bring fresh perspectives to classic stories, Zegler's approach to Snow White felt more like a repudiation of the original rather than a celebration or reimagining of it. It's one thing to put a new spin on a character, but to essentially tear down the foundation of the original and disrespect its legacy raised eyebrows for many. She seemed to alienate the very fans who loved the original Snow White, treating the original film like a relic of the past that needed to be fixed in the name of modern sensibilities. This kind of attitude, coming from someone who was hired to portray one of Disney's most iconic characters, sparked outrage. It wasn't about the actress herself, it was about the lack of respect shown for a character that was beloved by generations of fans. In essence, Zegler's comments, rather than showing a commitment to bringing something new to the role, came across as a chance to make a statement about how problematic the original Snow White was. And in doing so, it turned the movie into a political battleground. This was a massive misstep in terms of both casting and public relations. Disney wasn't just remaking Snow White. They were rewriting the entire cultural context of the story in a way that was more about virtue signaling than honoring the legacy of what made the story iconic. Then, South Park came to the rescue, as only South Park can. In their special Joining the Panderverse, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, creators of the show, unleashed a brilliant takedown of Hollywood's current obsession with forced diversity, inclusion, and woke agendas. South Park has always had a sharp eye for hypocrisy, and in this episode, they went after Disney with a vengeance. The satire was biting and direct, mocking how Hollywood has become obsessed with checking off boxes on diversity lists rather than telling stories that are meaningful, organic, and entertaining. In the episode, they lampooned the industry's tendency to rewrite characters based on their perceived wokeness, rather than focusing on the strength of the story itself. The joke? Every character now had to be recast as a strong, empowered woman of color, regardless of whether or not it made sense for the character or the storyline. South Park even made a hilarious comment about how every movie these days gets rebooted with a female lead simply because it's the right thing to do. They highlighted how South Park feels about the current Hollywood trend with a simple but cutting punchline. Put a chick in it, make her gay. It was a devastating criticism of the industry's recent obsession with pushing diversity quotas above narrative integrity. The truth is, the South Park episode perfectly captured the growing frustration many viewers have with Disney's recent decisions. It wasn't just about diversity, it was about Disney turning their stories into corporate tools, where casting choices and plot points are less about artistry and more about ticking boxes for social media points. The parody was a direct hit at a Disney culture that has become more obsessed with public relations and pandering than with creating quality entertainment. Once South Park aired its takedown, the internet exploded. The meme machine went into overdrive, with fans creating a wave of posts, videos, and tweets that all echoed the sentiment: Disney had lost its way. It wasn't just that fans were angry about the woke remakes. They were angry because Disney had become a brand that no longer trusted its own storytelling magic. By hiring talent like Zegler and forcing their films into the woke mold, Disney had alienated millions of loyal fans who had grown up with their original content. The backlash was a public display of how out of touch the company had become. People who had no interest in South Park found themselves agreeing with the show's critique because it reflected their own frustrations. Disney, instead of bringing people together through universal storytelling, was dividing them with shallow reboots that felt more like corporate checkboxes than genuine art. The meme culture online quickly latched onto the idea that South Park had finally spoken the truth that everyone was thinking. Not only did this backlash damage Disney's image, but it also reflected a deeper dissatisfaction with Hollywood's trend of pandering to every social media movement at the expense of quality and authenticity. Now, let's get down to the core issue. The problem with Disney's Snow White remake and many other woke reboots is that they aren't addressing any real issues. They're just creating new ones. Fans aren't upset about seeing diversity in media. They're upset when it feels forced, inauthentic, or insulting to the source material. The issue isn't Snow White being played by a Latina actress. It's the way the film's core themes have been completely distorted. Snow White, in the original movie, is not just a damsel in distress. She is kind, pure-hearted, and ultimately strong because of her love and empathy for others. She's a character who learns and grows, but she doesn't become self-important or dismissive of the things that make her human. Zegler's portrayal, which rejected the classic story's themes of love and romance in favor of girl power or being independent above all else, was a missed opportunity. It's possible to modernize a classic and make it feel fresh and relevant without disregarding its heart. Instead, Disney used the Snow White remake to push an agenda, rather than telling a compelling story. That's the problem. It's not about change for the sake of change. It's about change without a true understanding of why the original worked in the first place. They could have kept the essence of Snow White and updated the story in a way that felt organic, but instead, they prioritized virtue signaling. Ultimately, the South Park episode delivered the final blow to Disney's pretensions. By pointing out how Hollywood's obsession with pandering and political correctness is ruining good storytelling, they not only lampooned Disney's Snow White remake, they captured a broader, more universal truth about the current state of entertainment. Hollywood has become more about making statements than making films. This isn't just a Snow White problem. It's a problem that runs through the entire industry right now. People aren't asking for radical change. They're asking for authenticity, creativity, and respect for the material that's been beloved for generations. And South Park, in its usual style, delivered the message loud and clear. Enough of the corporate nonsense. People want to be entertained, not lectured. As much as we criticize Disney's recent moves, let's remember, we miss Disney. We miss the stories that made us laugh, cry, and believe in magic. And most importantly, we miss when Disney made decisions with integrity, not corporate gimmicks. The real question is whether Disney will hear the message. Will they keep doubling down on this woke agenda, or will they return to their roots and focus on making great stories that resonate with all audiences? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Have you been disappointed by Disney's recent remakes? Or are you optimistic they can turn things around? If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye.